All right. Is that? I can't see that. Okay, whatever. We're gonna take two of this one just because I think I was talking a little too long on the last one. I just wanted to make this video to kind of as an update because I know I haven't posted in like a month or whatever. Um, just I mean at this point it's just little stuff. So I mean we got the blower on, so it's just kind of working around it at this point. And so we'll go step by step here. So for the belt drive, I ended up going with a 3.5 pulley right now. I do have a 3.4 and a 3.6 in my possession. Should I want to go to that? But there is another guy. I can't remember his new username right now. I'll put it on the screen. But he just did this Predator swap. He had a 3.5 pulley and he was making about 9 psi, which is pretty much right where I want to be. So I went with a 3.5. So $500 in pulleys later, we're at a 3.5. And so I sourced a belt for that as well. It's a Napa green belt, and it is the part number is 060685HD. I know that's backwards for you guys, but if you want to flip that around, whatever. It's a 6 rib, so it's 13/16 inch in diameter, and then it's 16, not diameter. It's 13/16 inch width, and then it's 69 and an eighth outer circumference. And so that with that on the system right now, literally just sitting there, it hasn't been stretched at all. It's giving the tensioner about half of an inch off of its fully tensioned position. So like I cranked that tensioner all the way down, put the belt on, and it let it come back about a half of an inch. So I'm expecting it to stretch for another eighth to a quarter. I'm thinking that'll be all right. I've been told that's all right. We'll see. I don't know. But that's pretty much the belt system done. So the rear drive for the Supercharger and the AC's on. No comments there really. Just the front Fiat kit went together really well. Belt went on just fine after that. That was like the 5th belt. I had to go out back and forth and finally found the one that fit. And then so alternator and water pump belts back on, and we're done up front. I'm just leaving it disassembled for now, just so I have some room to work. Fueling. So I think I talked about this in my last video, but I went to a local company called Injector Masters in Clackamas, Oregon. They cleaned and rebuilt the injectors that I got with this blower, so like the stock 52-pound injectors or whatever's in it. And then they also cleaned the fuel rail as well. I think it ended up being like $225 to $250, somewhere in that ballpark for all of that. Really good people, treated me really well. They actually ended up calling me a couple weeks down the road after I had my injectors cleaned. They called me to make sure that they were working well. So I thought that was a nice touch. But yeah, just a little shout out there. They did really well. And really the only thing on the fuel rail or on the fueling right now is I'm still just trying to figure out what kind of line to run from the fuel rail to the port on the frame, where it kind of runs up from underneath the car up through the frame and then pokes out. It's just a weird fitting, and I mean there's been bigger fish to fry, so I haven't put a whole lot of thought into it, but trying to figure out how to make a custom line to go between the frame and the fuel rail, so I don't have to use that stupid hard line and have it stick out and look all ugly. And then the fuel should be done, or the fuel system should be done at that point. Harken back on my last point, I think I made it last video, but I was talking about how some guys have said that you need to drill out the holes corresponding to the fuel rail bolt downs, so like the tabs that the fuel rail have that sit on the blower and need to be bolted down. Some guys have said that you need to drill all the way through because they're not through holes. I'm thinking that might be a generational thing, because I put these through and they've threaded just fine. So it might be a year thing. Like either early ones might need to be drilled through and later ones don't. I'm not entirely sure. All I know is that this one did not need to be drilled through. and I bought these. I think they're M6x1 studs off Amazon. I think these are 185 millimeter long, and I think that needs about 160 millimeters. So I'm just gonna go buy some M6 thread lock nylon lock washer or lock nuts. Throw those on there, cut these to length, call it a day. That should be pretty simple. And then the fuel system will be done. So belt, fuel, air, nothing's really changed on the air. I haven't really even tried to do my air raid intake on it other than mocking it up really briefly and seeing that it's off by like 1 or 2 inches. I'm not really concerned about it because at the end of the day, I know that guys are running the JLT2 cold air and it more or less fits. So I'll just buy that intake. At this point, I'm just kind of doing whatever it looks the best. And it's a tune required intake too, so I don't foresee that being much of a change in performance between the two. And after air raid's little goof up with water coming down the vents into your box and then not helping me get any sort of CAD to fix that problem, I'm not really inclined to stay with them anyways, so whatever. And then I think that leaves cooling. So intercooler really hasn't changed anything. The intercooler situation really hasn't changed since the last time, so I haven't really touched the wiring. I've just been doing bigger projects. It just needs to be lengthened a little bit, or I need to figure out a better way to route it. Whatever. It's a pretty simple solve. I haven't done a whole lot of plumbing, and it's mostly because I think you can kind of see it. Can you see it over the blower? I have a reservoir right here, and it's a Canton, Canton Racing intercooler reservoir, and it's actually supposed to be for the 05 through 09 Mustang and that Paxton Supercharger setup, but it works on the 11 through 14s because they're still S197s, so really engine bay architecture is pretty much the same. And so that's sitting right there. I have a custom bracket for it because I don't have the Paxton setup, so I don't have the bracket that they come with, nor can I really find that bracket, and honestly it's probably just easier to make it. So the one I made is too flimsy, but I gotta remake it. But once I get the tank set, I can finish all the plumbing, and that should be pretty much done. And I think that's cooling. I think that's pretty much all the heavy hitters. The biggest problem I'm coming to right now are the heater hose tubes. So this guy, I'll have footage of it, but the tubes that come out of the block that connect to your heater hoses that run across the fuel rails, they just don't work with this blower. They don't full stop, they don't work with the blower, they just aren't good. So the passenger side, because now the passenger side has to reach around the blower and then kind of over the fuel rails, it's got to travel farther, so it's shorter in the long run. So it comes too short compared to the hose coming out of the block. So I might have to make a custom line for that one. And then the driver's side definitely has to be custom in some sort, because this tube is coming right into the gearbox of the throttle body. It's not even like, it's just straight touching. I don't know what's going on there. I'm just gonna bend it, and all it needs to do is bend, like, probably it needs to bend the driver's way half an inch and it'd be fine. And then really the only biggest issue would be that it's still at a level where the tube would be going straight into the PCV port, but I think I can run it over my valve cover and be fine. But I will have to run a custom heater tube for that. And I didn't know you could do that until recently, but apparently they just make these fittings that you can buy that have the quick connect on them, and then they're barbed. Not really barbed, but they have a fitting here. You just run a 5/8 line on it. They have them for 3/4 too if you want to step up to it, but the firewall is 5/8, so I'm not really going to change it. If you're looking for it, it's a Dorman part, and the part number is 800-416 for the 5/8 90 degree. They also make 5/8 in just a straight like nipple style, and I think they make 3/4 inch in both as well. Just beware that those are like $20 a piece because they can charge that for whatever reason. So they aren't cheap, but if it means you can run a custom line, make it look better than trying to make the stock ones work, I'm for it. So I'm anticipating one, if not likely both of the heater hoses need to be changed around for something custom, just so it's happier and I'm not like pulling the lines too tight, especially when the engine's moving around. But I think that's the biggest problem to solve, and I think that's the answer. So that should mean that there's not really any bigger issues right now. It's just tedious work making it look nice. Yeah, I think it's just small stuff at this point. I plan on putting a clutch in it at some point, but I think I might keep the stock clutch in it while I'm doing the beginning of the tuning, so like the idle tuning, and I think they're slow driving, if I remember correctly, because it's like idle and then it's like city driving or like slower driving and then it's wide open throttle. I might keep the stock clutch for the first two just so I get something that I can have this car move on its own power for the most part, and then throw another clutch in it. I don't know, because I'm pretty sure that stock clutch isn't going to hold a watt pull, either on the street or on a dyno. So I don't know. If you have any input on that, I'd actually be curious, because I'm trying to figure that out. Because you have to break in a new clutch, and it's like 500 to 1,000 miles. And with there being a 6-month time frame, like VMP offers, like from the date that you start tuning, you have 6 months to finish it. I mean, you could probably do 500 to 1,000 miles on it. And it's just like, it's one more thing to track, and I wouldn't prefer it. But I'm thinking that's what's going to have to happen, is I'm going to have to put a new clutch in it before I do a watt pull. So being said it's not operational now, I'm going to have to at least have it be able to drive on its own power before I swap clutches. But that's down the road. I think that's it. I still need to put the booster pump in the back, but that's pretty straightforward. I think that's literally just plug and play. I'm putting gauges in it. I think I've already talked about this. I have Innovate oil pressure, oil temperature, and their fuel pressure gauge, and then I have a glow shift boost gauge. So those are they're just gauges. Nothing great about it. I think it's glow shifts, triple gauge pod for the A-pillar. But if anybody has any input too on the how to mount the oil pressure and oil temperature gauge sensors, that would be nice, because I don't know. Sounds like you just tee off of your oil filter housing or whatever somehow, probably off your stock sensor, realistically, if you can tee off it. Probably the route that I'm going to be going down, but if anybody's done it before, that'd be nice. And now I think that's it. I think that's hopefully it's a shorter video. Yeah, if you have any input on anything, let me know. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm not used to having YouTube videos and a channel, if you call it that. So I probably won't respond super quickly, but if I see that I have questions, I'll answer them as I can. If you want a quicker response, you can go to my Instagram. It's as one word, it's deepblue_5.0. I check that pretty much daily, so that should be a quicker response if you want to go that way. And I think that's it. So hopefully the next video won't be in like a month, but I am going to school, so I'm making them as fast as I reasonably can, which is really just as fast as I can build this, which isn't very fast, because I work on it on the weekends, and you realize you need a part that takes 3 days to get here, so it's next weekend when you can realistically work on it again. So it's a fun process. But I digress. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.